Notes 3.1. If you notice the last two chapters we did that we started with was how do we look at data. Now we're going to look at how do we collect the data. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what kind of good question can we ask. We're going to identify a population and a sample and distinguish between an observational study and an experiment. Okay, so here's a certain example. Tommy and Hannah want to go off campus to eat lunch every day. Because the lunch period is short, they're wondering if it'd be faster to go to the fast food restaurant or use the drive-through. So do they go inside or do they go through the drive-through? Which one's faster? So each day they flip a coin to determine which way they're going to go, and then they record the time. They use a stopwatch, record the time, how long it took for each one, and then over many times of looking at that data, they decided the order took about 2 minutes and 34 seconds less than using the drive-through if they went inside. So that's sort of the idea of how they collected the data. So every problem starts with asking a question. So they wanted to know, is it better to go inside or through the drive-through? Which one's quicker? They then collected their data. They then looked at it and analyzed it. And then they interpret those results. Okay, and what can they conclude from that? So every statistical study starts with a question. Okay, they want to know, is it quicker in the drive-through or is it quicker when you go inside? Okay, so you tell me, is this a good question to ask? How much money does this guy have in his wallet right now? Okay, now, every statistical question we ask, if it's statistical, it's going to say, it could vary from time to time. Okay, but if it says right now, that's just a yes or no answer. He's got $10 in his wallet. That's not really a statistical question that's going to vary from time to time. How long can students at your school hold their breath? Okay, so that is going to vary from person to person. So that's a good statistical question. Do most U.S. adults engage in vigorous exercise at least once a week? So once again, it's a question that's going to vary. For every adult, how much they exercise is going to vary from person to person. Okay, so those are all good. These last two are good statistical questions. The first one, right now is not, because of right now, it makes it not. Now, if it said how much money does they have a wallet on average, that's going to vary from day to day. That would be a good question, but not when it says right now. Okay. So the next thing we want to look at is some vocabulary. So if we want to know, say we want to know the percent of drivers in the U.S. who text while driving. So we're going to survey, 16 to 20-year-olds who live in the U.S., and we're going to ask them. Now, we would not want to create a census for this, okay? Think about a census means you're going to collect data from every single person. Now, even the U.S. government, they put billions of dollars into taking a census every 10 years, and they only get like 70% of the people to respond to the survey. If it's a true census, it's 100% of the people are going to have to respond to the survey. Okay, so that's the idea of a census. So instead of doing a census, it's easier to take a sample from a population. Okay, so in this particular problem, our population would be all of the 16 to 20-year-olds who drive. Our sample would be, we select 1,000 of them. Okay, and we're going to talk about how we do that randomly. So our population is the entire group we're looking at. A sample is a subset, certain individuals out of that population. And a census is when we collect data from everybody in that population. Okay, so we'll look at some examples here. The student government at a high school surveys 100 students at the school to get their opinion about a change to the bell schedule. Okay, so what would be the population they're talking about? All the students in the school. The sample they collected would be the 100 students that they collected data from. And those 100 students are supposed to represent the whole population of everyone in the school. Okay, part B, the quality control manager at a bottling company selects 10 cans from the production line every hour to see if the volume of soda is within acceptable limits. So if it's a 10-ounce bottle, is it really 10 ounces in there? So they have to make sure. So the population would be all the cans within that hour being made. That's the population. The sample would be the 10 that are selected. Okay. You wouldn't want to do a census, right? You wouldn't want to open all the sodas and see what they are, right? You'd only select 10, and those 10 represent all the other sodas. Okay. The other thing we want to talk about is the difference between an observational study and an experiment. Okay. An observational study is we're just kind of observing. So we have a certain population, and we're observing what's happening in that population. Other studies, we watch the behavior of animals in the wild. We track medical history on patients to look see if there's any associations, like between diet, exercise, and heart disease. Okay, so we don't do anything to people. We just kind of observe what they're doing. Whereas experiments, we are imposing some sort of treatment on them. Okay, so we might ask the question, does aspirin reduce the chance of heart attack? Do plants grow better when classical music is playing? Okay, so what we do here with the aspirin is we say, some people are going to take the aspirin, some people are not going to take the aspirin, right? We're imposing that treatment, and then we're going to look at the results at the end. Okay, so we're not just observing something, we're making something happen first. Here, does classical music playing help plants grow? So we're going to put some with classical music, some without, and overall we're going to see, at the end, would plants grow better. So definition here, an observational study observes individuals and measures variables of interest, but it does not attempt to influence the responses. Whereas an experiment deliberately imposes some treatment on an individual and measures the response then. We give them something, and we measure their response at the end. That's basically the whole idea there. Okay. Now, I will say this. We had said that association does not mean causation last chapter. We can with an experiment. We can say, if I impose and I do it correctly, we're going to talk about how to randomly select people for different studies, but if we do it correctly, we can say that, for example, the aspirin does reduce or does not reduce the heart attack chance. Okay, so there is a cause and effect with experiments. There is not a cause and effect if we're just observing. Okay, so here's an example. 90 residents in a retirement community were selected at random. Each member of a sample was asked a number of questions, including questions about exercise and blood pressure. Residents who exercised more were less likely to have a high blood pressure. So more exercise, lower blood pressure. Okay, now, is that an observational study or an experiment? Okay, did we impose something on them, some sort of treatment, or did we just observe what was happening? Okay, so it was an observation. There was no treatment for the people. We didn't tell them you have to exercise or not exercise. We just observed what happened. Okay, students in a stats class were divided into two groups at random. Students in one group were given a set of words to memorize in a room with playing music. Students in another room were given the same list to memorize, but in a quiet room. Students in the quiet room were able to remember more on average. Okay, so now, did we impose some sort of treatment? Yes, we did. We took the kids, we put them into two groups, and we had one group with music and one group without music. So we imposed the music to them. Okay, that was our treatment. So this is an experiment. Okay, here's one last example. Researchers at Columbia University randomly selected 1,000 teenagers in the U.S. for a survey. According to a ABC News article about the research, teenagers who eat with their families at least 5 times a week are more likely to get better grades in school. So what's the question they're asking? Okay, they're asking, if kids eat with their parents, are they more likely to do better in school? Okay, that's kind of the statistical question. The population is all teenagers, and the sample were the 1,000 teenagers that were in the survey. Those 1,000 teenagers are representing the population of all teenagers. Observational study or experiment. Okay, did we say to them, okay, you've been selected for the study, you have to eat with your parents, and you don't eat with your parents? No, we didn't put a treatment to them. We just said this is an observational study. We're just observing. Did you or did you not eat with them, and what are your grades like? Okay. So since it's an observational study, we cannot say cause and effect. We can't say that eating with your parents causes you to have better grades. Okay. That is section 3.1.